this is pretty bizarre because in the Bible, instruments never show up until there is a king. And even in Revelation 4 and 5, there is no singing in heaven and no musical instruments until the king arrives and takes his throne, and then they pick up instruments and start to sing. So it appears that this long tradition of the church has it exactly wrong, and the reason it appears that way is because that's how it is. The church has been wrong about this. Okay? And God has, in the 20th century, rubbed our noses in it by raising up stones into sons of Abraham in the charismatic movement. And in spite of all the name it and claim it and other grotesque 9 persons of the Trinity stuff that's going on, they have forced us to think about musical instruments again, and lo and behold, the Bible teaches about it. Now I want us to look at one of the passages of the Bible that tells us the entire history of the Old Testament all in one place, and that's in Genesis chapter 4. The whole history of the Old Testament is here. Genesis 1 through the end of the flood is basically the whole history of the world. And then it just expands out with new characters and brings us down to Jesus, the greatest of all the Noahs. Okay? But we know that this story begins that the man, Adam means bag of dirt. Woman means flame girl, Isha. But man means dirtbag. So that's, the man had relations with his wife, Eve, living. And she conceived and gave birth to Cain, and she said, I've gotten a man-child with the help of Yahweh. And again she gave birth to his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of flocks, and Cain was a tiller of the ground. Now, these two words mean heaven and earth. Cain means smith, one who digs in the ground, one who plows into the ground, one who digs in the ground, a smith. All right? And the word Habel means mist or cloud. And Habel, the second born, is to be the priestly of the 2 sons because he's second born. And the firstborn is to be the kingly. He is to rule, and the second born is to be priest. Now, this is not told us here in the text. You have to read the whole rest of the Bible to see that this is how it works out. All right? Even right down into medieval Europe, the firstborn son is the one who inherits the father's estate. The secondborn goes into the clergy. What else is he going to do? He's not even allowed to marry. I mean, it is tough to be the secondborn. It's good to be a king. All right. Now we remember that Cain murders Abel, and we remember that Cain's offering was not accepted for a variety of reasons. One, he wasn't the one who was supposed to do it, probably. He brought vegetables instead of blood sacrifice, and so he was not accepted. And I'll tell you, this is a big, huge public humiliation. This happened about 125 years after the creation. Adam and Eve had other sons by that time. These 2 sons had married, and they had sons and grandchildren. And these 2 worship events where these things happened, there were hundreds of people there. And everybody saw Cain get rejected. And so public humiliation like this can't be withstood. And we know that there are lots of people there because Cain went right out and built a city, Enoch. You don't do that by yourself alone. It's kind of hard. There were people with him, his wives, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, his great-great-grandchildren, his great-great-great-grandchildren were there, and lots of sons and daughters all between because these people lived a long time. I don't think they had a child every 2 years, but there probably were lots of kids around and people around by that time. Cain goes out and builds a city. We go from the countryside to the city. This is the essential shift in history. It's the shift between the old and the new creations, from land to city, from a promised land to a promised city, from an agricultural barter economy to a citified money economy, from barter to capitalism. We could sit here and talk about this, but we're supposed to get back to singing Saudi. But he builds a city, and this is a kingly zone. And Cain has children, and they come down to Lamech, which means king, right? And Lamech has 3 sons. Verse 20, Ada, his wife, gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. And then his brother's name was Jubal, and he was the father of those who play the lyre and the pipe. And as for Zillah, she gave birth to Tubal-Cain, Vulcan, the forger of all implements of bronze and iron. Let's stop there. 3 sons. One son is the forger of implements of bronze and iron. Now, where do you get bronze and iron? Out of the earth. So he is the new Cain. And Jabal is the father of those who keep livestock. So he is the new Abel. You see, these two things. But we have something new. We have a king, and we have something new. One who is the father of those who play the lyre and the pipe. Now, all 3 of these are tools. They extend human beings in their dominion. In the Garden of Eden, we didn't have tools. We just picked the fruit off the trees and ate it. And if we were hungry for any other kind of baby food, the angels would open the Gerber for us and spoon it into our mouths. But you'll remember that the great tragedy of the garden was what? No donut trees. Which means you've got to go outside the garden and use what? Tools. And knife and fire. Flaming sword. That's what you get when you go through the door. A flaming sword. The angels say, here, son, you're old enough to play with fire now. You're old enough to have a pocket knife. So you can go out, you can cut things down, and put them in the fire, and they start to make donuts. It takes, the science of poking the hole in it and all that, it still remains the problem before we're going to get donuts. All the secrets of donuts, which only the Masons understand. But we are on the road to transform the world into donuts. Eventually you get those cream-filled chocolate-covered, as you know. Well, tools. God wants us to have tools, and musical instruments are tools. That's what they are. They extend human beings. We have 3 kinds of instruments. We have stringed instruments because you have a string in your body called a vocal cord, right? And we have wind instruments because you have to make wind come out of your pipe. And we have percussive instruments because your body is percussion. All right? If it says clap your hands, that's because your body's a percussive instrument. And when you speak, it's always string, percussion, and wind going at the same time. And that's all the instruments there are, folks, until you get to a theremin box, until you get to the 20th century, and Hans Martineaus and electronic instruments. That's it. They're either percussion, string, or winds of various kinds. They're extensions of humanity. Instruments are kingly extensions of humanity. We need to get them back in the church, and y'all are doing a good job of moving in that direction. But you see, as I said Sunday, Satan does not like musical instruments because, as we saw the other day, they have the power, it seems, employed in a semi-sacramental way to drive Satan away. Now, let's take another couple of versions of Psalm 23. If you look